All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the October 14th Community Mental Health Program and Budget Committee meeting. I'll start by reading our mission statement. Macomb County Community Mental Health, guided by the values, strengths, and informed choices of the people we serve, provides quality services which promote recovery, community participation, self-sufficiency, and independence. Next is the adoption of the agenda. I just want to make a note real quick. We added a few items since you may have last seen it. Item K under request to approve is new. Dave had mentioned that previously. And the items under other possible agenda items are for discussion only, but I wanted to bring them up tonight just to begin that discussion. Having said that, I will take a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Support,
Motion.
O'Connell.
Motion from Linda, support from Chris. Are there any questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
The agenda is adopted. Next is hearing of the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak on any of the items on the agenda, you have 5 minutes. Give us your name and address. Make sure you unmute yourself. Wave your hand. Just speak. Hearing of the public going once. Hearing of the public going twice. Third and final call for hearing of the public. All right, we will close hearing of the public. There is another one at the end if I didn't catch you this time. And we will move on to item 5A, request to approve updates, MCCMH MCO policy 5-004, administration board bylaws. I'll take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Bush.
I think I heard
Osberg,
motion from
support.
Kathy and support from Linda. Dave, go ahead. If that's you.
Stacy, I'm not sure if you were prepared to speak to this. It was an update.
Yeah, so I wrote the summary, but through a federal CCBHC expansion grant project to provide services to persons with serious mental illness or serious emotional disturbances that also may have co-occurring substance use disorder. Funding would cover services for those who do not have insurances or who are underinsured regardless of residency. The board will be governing authority for the implementation of this program. This policy was amended to codify the board's authority to govern all programs implemented under the enabling resolution of 1975 and thereafter, including the following programs: the Macomb County Prepaid Inpatient Health Plan, i.e. the Medicaid funding, the Macomb County Community Mental Health Services Program, i.e. the State of Michigan General Fund monies, the My Health Link Medicare Medicaid pilot, the Integrated Health Macomb, of which is the CCBHC expansion grant funding. Other programs may, from time to time, be implemented under MCCMH governing authority as time-limited local or grant fund initiatives occur.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks.
Are there board members with questions, comments? All right.
I do, Phil.
Kathy, go ahead.
So this is basically just adding to it some of the things that we oversee, but just haven't been enumerated.
Correct.
Before?
Enumerated, and it also added the CCBHC.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members with questions? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5B, approval of residential lease A. Take a motion to approve.
So moved, O'Connell.
Support, Schmidt.
Motion from Chris, support from Selena. Tracy, TJ, Dave, anyone?
So TJ is running down a river, so we'll let him stay run down the river,
Fair
fortunately.
enough. Tracy, go ahead.
But I'll give you a brief overview and, of course, answer any questions if anybody has any. So the first lease you're looking at, lease A, in summary, that particular lease is staying at the same monthly lease amount, but you will receive, it is a 0.2% decrease, but that's due to the overall taxes decreasing. Just as a friendly reminder, we cap the monthly reimbursement rate of the insurance. And I'll take any questions related to this home in their package, just because I know you guys haven't approved one of these in a while. It does outline the landlord. It also outlines the square footage and just kind of gives you the parameters of the home, including demonstration that we've inspected the home and any needed repairs have been done either by the landlord or the provider.
Thanks, Tracy. Any questions? Comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5C, approval of residential lease B. I'll take a motion to approve.
So move.
Support.
Motion from Nick, support was from Selena, I think. Okay, Tracy, go ahead.
Sure, this one, you'll see a 0.5% decrease, and it's directly due to the reduction in taxes. That monthly amount is staying the same, and the insurance was slightly reduced, but it's also been capped as previously outlined. And also you've been provided the documentation demonstrating that the home was inspected, and it's currently meeting all of our expectations related to maintenance and repair for both the landlord and the provider.
Thanks, Tracy. Any questions or comments on this one?
I have a question, Phil.
Linda, go ahead.
It's probably a comment. When I wasn't used to seeing what was with this lease B, where TJ went out and found things, and then I think it's the homeowner who, the manager, it said manager, went point by point to say those things weren't there. The gutters were fine, the leak was fine, the garage didn't look bad. So that was concerning. And then I couldn't see whether, since they questioned that those things even existed, I couldn't really see if they fixed them.
Sure, I think one of the things that's happening here is when he did the inspection to then when the provider was given the response, there was some time in between, right? So I think that they're writing it in a way that they were saying that it wasn't a problem, as in that moment it wasn't a problem. And Linda, that is a common thing, that people have different interpretations of what meets our expectations. So I don't know
Well,
if that
and
answers
sometimes
your
who's
question.
responsible for it?
For sure.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Linda. Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5D, approval of residential lease C. I'll take a motion to approve.
So move.
Support.
Motion from Nick, support from Selena. Go ahead, Tracy.
So this particular lease is a 1% increase, but it's directly due to the taxes and insurance increasing for this particular item, but the actual base rent is the same, and then the insurance again is capped, and it's meeting all of our repairs and by both the landlord and the provider.
Thanks, Tracy. Any questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. All right, thanks, Tracy. Next is item 5E, request to approve MRS Interagency Cash Transfer Agreement number 3313. Take a motion to approve.
So moved. Vosberg.
Support, Phillips.
All right, motion from Kathy, support from Lori. Dave, did you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, actually, I'll kind of speak to the ICTA process in general. We've had a longstanding partnership with MRS, which is the state of Michigan, Michigan Rehabilitation Services. They're for employment services, and the cash transfer arrangements allow us to maximize our funding. So basically, we contribute a portion, and then the state almost close to triples it. then the state MRS then becomes responsible for those funds, but those funds have to be used per the agreements that are in the packet. So that they're for the people here in Macomb County and for their employment services. These were part of our annual budget submissions. This is a longstanding practice. They've actually been adjusted down a little bit because of the changes in utilization that we're seeing last year, and then again impacted by the pandemic this year. We are working internally and with MRS to make sure that people are aware that these services are available, and we hope to, maximize our utilization.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions or comments from board members?
I have a comment, Phil.
Go ahead, Tony.
Dave, in your emails to us, you mentioned that you're trying to get your arms around the decrease in the referrals, and they are underutilized. Can you give us an update on what's going on there?
Not yet. When I started, Crystal from MRS was one of the first people I met with. It seems to be, it's been a historic issue here in Macomb. I'm a big fan of supported employment, and now with the pandemic impacting our center-based skill building facilities, they were the ones impacted the most. So the supported employment is out in the community with a job coach to varying degrees. And of course, that's being impacted right now by the work restrictions, that are specific to each of those employer sites. But I definitely think there's room for improvement, even during the pandemic. And then as this starts to resolve, we want to be well positioned to take advantage of it going forward. We are working on a request for proposal that'll be coming to the board for supported employment to add providers in this area. We do have some interest from providers with a good experience in this area that are from outside of Macomb County, who have the staff and the supports. I'm aware of one Wayne County provider who's actually has some of their folks working at Harbor Oaks Hospital as an example. So they already have a presence and are doing some good things here in Macomb County. So yeah, we need to get creative. We need to spread the word. We need to work with the supports coordinators and case managers and with the community as well to let them know that these services are available. MRS is able to work with employers in the community. They can get tax credits, certain incentives that are helpful on the employer side as well. So yeah, I think it's well deserving of some additional resources and attention. And like I said, these are kind of annual renewals with a good partnership with the state of Michigan.
I have a little input that I picked up. Some of the resistance for moving ahead with MRS comes from the families, and they are hesitant because it may impact their benefits. Yes. Yeah. And I attended a conference over in Troy last year that was pretty clear that you can make quite a bit of money and not affect your benefits. And I believe some kind of communication with those families that might resist might be more open if they knew actually where the numbers are.
That's an excellent point, Tony. Thank you. Yeah, the benefit analysis is part of the process. The message should be that you're always better off working because really there's ways to work within the system appropriately. There's a lot of fairly recent legislation that's supporting of this type of program and will allow people to earn money and keep their benefits. Yeah, it takes a little work up front, but it takes a lot of education because people are, rightly concerned about the benefits they're currently receiving. They've worked hard to get them in place, and it might take a lot of work to get them back. So yes, the benefit analysis up front is important, as is education. Working with the schools, it's very helpful so that people are well prepared when they're exiting school. They know what's available in our system. They've already gone through the benefit analysis portion, hopefully, and they're ready to kind of transition smoother. So yeah, it's a big area, but it's on our radar, and we'll be focusing on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question. Who are some of the vendors that we contract with now? Is that what like ARC does in the community? Is that one of the providers?
They've done it historically. There was Christina. Yeah, Christina's on.
I'm on if you wanted me to jump in, Dave.
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you.
All of our skill building providers have supported employment in their contracts. We actually, one of my staff has just been pulling the data so that as we complete the RFP, which we're hoping to have it completed this week, and we present that to Adam and Dave for their review, we can give them that data. But all of them do have it in their contracts. They don't all provide that service because it can be more costly with having the staff going out into the community and depending on the ratios. But that would be ARC, Creative Employment Options, which is CEO is the acronym. CSDD, they are now called Life Enrichment Center, but you might recall the CSDD name. SRI, and I'm sorry I'm saying the acronyms as I'm saying them, I'm trying to remember the full names.
That's Social Resources.
Yes, thank you. Social Resources, Inc. And RSA Foundation also provides that. And I think, and then we have one more on the west side of the state, but they are set up with us because there's an individual receiving services on that state within a residential home. So they're only serving that one individual. So we do have a good number of providers doing it. They're just not doing it at the volume that we'd like.
And what's the reason for that, Christina? Just, off the top of your head.
Off the top of my head, I would say the ability to find gainful employment is difficult. The desire from the persons that are having these services provided, they might not be seeking that. That might not be their personal choice or desire. But it is harder to sustain that. And then it has been difficult for the providers to find staff to provide that service because it is more expensive. They are going out in the community and they're providing that care almost, I don't want to say job coach because that's not what it is. It is different, but it's similar. And so it's costly for the providers to find staff to be able to do that.
Great, thanks. Good to see you, Crystal.
Thank you.
Christina.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks, Linda.
Crystal, too.
I like Crystal, so I'm happy to answer to that too.
Are there any other board members with comments or questions? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next up is item 5F, request to approve MRS Interagency Cash Transfer Agreement number 336. Take a motion to approve.
So moved,
Motion to
O'Connell.
approve. Support Phillips.
Thank you, Chris and Lori. Dave, go ahead.
Can I just say ditto?
Perfect. Any questions
okay.
or comments?
It's a larger dollar amount. It's the bulk of our contract. It's the $497,000. So I did double check, and yes, it's budgeted and all set. Just a renewal of an agreement.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions or comments on this item? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5G, request to approve new employment contract for CMH CEO. As my dog's barking in the background, I apologize for that. Motion, I'll take a motion.
Support.
Support Schmidt.
Thank you. Tracy or Dave?
We lose them.
Yes, you should approve.
I need more than that.
Completely biased. No, I'm not sure exactly what to add here. It's a 1-year contract for me. It was reviewed through the board personnel committee. And
We can have Chris or Kathy speak to it as
Send- Chris did all the heavy lifting.
Yeah, as as we talked about at personnel, we had made a couple of changes in light of recent discussions regarding authority. With that kind of not being considered at this point, we wanted to still move ahead and get a contract renewal. We were hoping for additional years, but in light of not having a lot of certainty, we opted just for the 1-year renewal with some adjustments in compensation. Everyone was in favor of it, so we'd like to kind of move forward with it as outlined.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for all of your hard work on this. I know it was not easy, but thank you for taking that up along with Kathy and getting this contract done. Do we have any board members with questions or comments?
There weren't so many changes, it would have been easy, but things kept changing. So you gotta be resilient and adaptive. So
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Hearing no comments or questions, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? All right, motion passes. Next up is item 5H, request to approve CMH SP 2020 Amendment 2. Take a motion to approve.
So move.
Support.
Motion from Nick, support from, we'll say, Selena. Dave, go ahead.
plead the fifth.
We just approved your contract. You have to work.
All right. Well, happy October, everybody. We are in the new fiscal year. There was a flurry of amendments and changes at the state level. And they go through the state's EGRAM system for review and signature, except for our PIHP contract, which goes through a whole different platform. I was put into a pickle where the state was pretty much requiring a number of these documents be approved. A couple of them we would have lost almost $400,000 if those deadlines had not been met. I reached out to Corp Counsel, and it was suggested that I go ahead and sign those and then bring them to the board for review, which is backwards. I did notify the board as these things were happening, but that's pretty much what they were. That the state was juggling to meet a number of updates from the federal government, and of course trickle down theory. So some of these were simple policy and procedure things that they had to put into our contracts. The SUD contracts got real complicated. Those are the CBH ones, because the state made a mistake and they double entered the SUD contracts for last fiscal year. So they were overexposed statewide by about $15 million. Because Helen is so good, thankfully Helen is here. Helen knew that didn't look quite right in there, and we ran last year against the budgeted amounts that Ellen thought we should have had. The state was fairly panicked, so there were 3 amendments through the CVH SUD funding in egrams. One with Helen, I don't even know if you can help me with that one. The second amendment was where they stepped in and we had to sign knowingly wrong numbers.
Right.
Trust in amendment number 5, which corrected it back to where we thought it should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clear.
Yeah. So years ago, we were in egrams, not ever very happy with the process with the state. Back then, egrams was really just a way for tracking the allocated dollar amounts and collecting reports and documenting when they were received. Over time, though, they've expanded this to actually be more of a contracting piece, because years ago, even back when Don Hapkirk and John Kinch were here, they had to sign in egrams, and it was really just a formality. But now it is tied into the contracting dollars, because in the past, until this year, we were always given 1/12 of our block grant funds and any federal grant funds just were awarded to us and allocated to us each month. And then we would report back on how it was spent or not. And at the end of the year, we kind of would settle up. And there was a lot of leeway with the state under the rules and regulations of our contract of how we could make adjustments along the way. But this being moved all into egrams now is the actual way of funding and payment. Now we only get paid based on what we bill against. And our billings have to be in line with the budgeted egram numbers. So the state throughout the year would say, well, yeah, we know that's a mistake. It got in wrong, because this is going over like 3 or 4 different state departments. So the people who actually come up with the budgets with us aren't the ones in control of egrams. So they, what we get back is, well, we'll make all that correction at amendment time. And usually amendments are done quarterly. However, somehow throughout this year, as they did amendments, like Dave mentioned, sometimes they double enter things. And then late in the year, they rebudgeted where they had things, because they said egrams had a formula in it. And so the formula was kind of messing up some of the numbers. So then they separated pieces out into their own line items in egrams. And doing all this, they made a huge mess. They were over allocated in some areas. And then they took things like our administrative cost and doubled it. And then to fix it, they set it down to like 10% of what it was. So it wasn't even right. So poor Dave has been subject to these back and forth corrections, but also what happens is it's a system where if they put something in and it gets released to us, they can't take it back until Dave signs it. So Dave has to sign in a couple of these situations numbers that we knew were incorrect and the state knew were incorrect, but it was the only way to get back in the system for a correction to come back forward again. So finally we did get Amendment 5, which is our final numbers, and puts us in line with what we, like 99% of what we expected our original funding amounts to be.
So I'm very glad Helen is here. Helen and Richard and I met with folks from the department, and they explained what had happened. It was surprising to hear them say egrams won't correct this for them. They said, no, you can't do anymore. So they had this huge panic problem, but the other part of the state, as Helen was mentioning, wasn't helping them out. So they were in a pickle, we were in a pickle. We made it work, was not pretty. And everybody across the state is raising similar concerns with the EGRAM system, but it is what we have right now. So I would ask of the board, happy to coordinate it. If there could be a work group or a subset of this board or an opportunity where we could try to come up with kind of an urgent, emergent contract process. You know, who needs to be notified and under what situations, because this was definitely uncomfortable, but necessary. So apologies and up front, and we'll try to fix it going forward.
Well, I'm glad you did it, Dave. You know, I'm a big person and say it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, but this is oh, Dave knows that. Dave knows.
Nick's comments about personal liability kept going through my head. Thank you, Nick.
But, well, since you mentioned the personal liability, does EGRAMS accommodate the signature from the CEO? I noticed one did and one didn't. At the end of the day, we end up with
we're working on the Office of the County Exec does have access to EGRAMS. And there was at least once when they were both, I was able to sign and they were able to sign. We also have a secondary, without going into too much detail, secondary process between our office and the Office of the County Executive, and Sandy helps coordinate that. So what I've been doing is downloading the contract, the agreement from the EGRAM system, sending it to Aaron, and Sandy loads it onto a smart sheet that is shared between our offices. And then it's supposed to be where Aaron approves it. Then it comes here for program and budget. Then it goes to the full board. Then I would approve it and it goes to the Office of the County Exec. And then it goes back out to whoever it's supposed to go back to.
This is all part of the Paperwork Reduction Act, no doubt. And that's a joke.
Yeah, no, I know. And then the state goes,
Go ahead.
by the close of business. And I'm like, I can't do all those steps by the close of business. The state, in a lot of cases, has been very accommodating. They'll grant the extensions. They know the layers we have here. I don't know if this was an isolated event, the end of the fiscal year. It got so bad that I had emails from the state saying, we've lost track. Did you sign your PIP contract? And I had to send them the signed agreement that I had from their system. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So
I assume that the reason this is on the agenda following your contract approval was because, no, I'm just kidding. I agree with Linda. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Right?
Going back to my contract, can I have a larger page so I can cover the personal?
Right. Dave, you said you might put together a committee. I would be willing to help.
It's at the board's preference, but that would be my ask. Okay.
We'll get through some of the other board members' comments first, and then we'll go from there. Kathy, go ahead.
I believe the Board of Commissioners has an emergency type of policy, don't they? I was thinking that, and most of what Dave has described is just more technical in nature, other than, of course, this board needs to ratify it, but it's technical in nature. So I would suggest we start with looking at the Board of Commissioners policy, seeing if that would satisfy our needs, and let the people that you just described who had look-see at it, and then we could bring it to the board. If we need more input from the members, then we can form a task force to do that. But I'm thinking if we just kind of look at what the Board of Commissioners has, that might be sufficient.
Yeah, Kathy, what we have our, it's the chair of the board, it's the finance committee chair, and then whoever the chair is of that individual committee where that item would normally flow through. So for us, it'd be slightly different, but I think we could come up with something.
I think we could get, the finance review and court counsel review and my review, and then present it to some configuration subset of our full board of directors. And then maybe we'd have to make allowances for, if there was an absent member in that chain somehow, but, Adam could cover for me. There's Aaron reports to John Chepka at the county, things like that. But yeah, I think if we start there, we could probably be off to a good start. I could draft something up and just share it with the board, and then we could formalize it at a meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, that works.
Lori,
did you have a question or anything? No? Okay. I thought I saw your hand up, but wasn't sure. Dave, sorry to cut you off.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on Amendment 2? All right, seeing and hearing none, we have a motion and support. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5I, request to approve CMHSP 2020 Amendment 4. Take a motion to approve.
Motion to approve, Phillips.
Support Schmidt.
Motion from Lori, support from Selena. Dave, you want to do that ditto thing again? Go ahead.
Ditto for the next item as well, the fifth, the CBH Fifth Amendment.
Anybody have questions on the Fourth Amendment? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5J, request to approve extension of Pontiac General Hospital contract. Take a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Support.
Motion from Selena, support from Chris. Dave, is that you on this one?
Yeah, I'll cover it. If you recall, the initial contract with Pontiac General was that they were making isolation beds available to us related to the COVID-19 pandemic. They were utilized a couple months ago, because we had people living in a facility in Oakland County, and Oakland County had the contract with Pontiac General, and our folks ended up kind of transitioning there. We met with the Provider Alliance, Christina and Adam and I. The system is stressed. The staff shortage that was in place before the pandemic continues. They are at risk. We are at risk at our level of a home not having staff, or there being having a need to isolate people who do test positive. So we very much need this option in our continuum right now, and we're asking for the extension of the original agreement. Oh, on a related note as well, at the state level, the request was for each of the regions, the PIHPs, to submit our crisis plans for adult foster cares during these times. So thank you to Tracy, Christina, and Adam for the work on that area too. We did submit a very nice plan to the department. They're collecting that information at their level, and I would hope they're also looking to, fill in some of the gaps. So from our meeting with the Provider Alliance, I did include, possible consideration at the state level from licensing, because there are licensing requirements right now that honestly may not be met at times because of the situation that we're in. So rather than having them dinged on the licensing side, their providers are doing the best they can to ensure health and safety, but at times, you know, that's the minimal. I mean, there's somebody there and they're keeping an eye on things. They might not be hitting everything in the individual plans of service and things like that. The system is stressed and stretched. So we are, you know, we continue to work with our system and work at the state level as well. There's no, you know, magic answer right now, but this contract does give us one additional option to our existing structure.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions or comments? All right. Seeing and hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next is item 5K, the new item, request to approve CBH Fifth Amendment. Take a motion to approve. Dave is smirking.
Ditto.
So
To approve.
support O'Connell.
Motion from Lori, support from Chris. Dave, do you have anything?
No, just Helen commented too. That's the one that actually corrects the funding. So that was a good one to finally come across.
Perfect. Any questions or comments on the correction? This has been a definition of government at its finest. All right, hearing and seeing.
We have the definition of CBH. We have the definition of CBH.
That's Helen. Community behavioral.
Yeah, I think it's just community behavioral health. It's their acronym, not ours.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Helen. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. All right, next is item 6, receive and file. There are no items there. Number 7, resolutions, no items there either. We'll move on to item 8, other possible agenda items. I'd like to take a motion just to receive and file items 8A through F, and then we can discuss them one by one.
So moved.
Support.
Motion from Nick. I think that was support from Lori or Selena.
Lori.
Selena. All right, do we want to go with Dave or is Cindy around?
I'll
Both.
kick it off just for clarity here. What we have is a number of marketing media campaigns that we're working on. Some because of our grants, the CCBHC, a lot on the opioid health home side and opiates in general. So Cindy has been working very hard, and I'll pass this to her. Because of the timing again, though, we wanted to present this to you today in hopes of getting it approved at the full board meeting. And because the hope is to have the video portion done in November so that we can be ready for the television spots in December. So with that, I can have Cynthia give the detail about the process that she went through.
Hi, everyone. Yes, so everything that Dave said is 100% correct. So ultimately, between the three bids that we've put in front of you, ultimately I decided, and we decided to go with Get Super Rad, the video production company, due to their high level of quality and just ability to just to storytell. And that's really a big component that we want to have here with the organization so that we're able to appeal to our audience. As you know, just the second away from launching our website. We've done all of our new branding. We're really just working on reintroducing ourselves to the community. And with that expectation and understanding, we want to make sure that we have the strongest foot forward with all of the, media components that we're putting out, especially as they relate to television. We already know that, the numbers are very high for television due to COVID and, people just checking in on a daily basis, as well as the election that's coming up. But once that ramps up, a lot of people are going to be, watching the news, and we want to make sure that we have really good content for individuals to draw individuals in, and so that they understand that we're here for them. We know that the numbers may go up. We know that there is a possibility that we may have another stay-at-home order. And if that does happen, who knows? But if that does happen, we want to be prepared in putting out messaging that will appeal to them, so that they feel comfortable, contacting us, and feeling that they're represented, even as we're speaking to them through these images. And so if you guys have any questions about this at all, I'm happy to answer anything. But we do believe that, after reviewing, Get Super Rad is definitely the better bet to go with.
Thanks. Yeah. Dave, go ahead.
In November, December, you'll be receiving the proposals for the television spots, the radio spots, and the billboards as well. But there was an urgent need to have the video content start in November, so we have to get it through the process, if possible, this month.
Right. And ideally, the production component will start as soon as it's approved, and then we'll start rolling out that content, and it'll go out via social and via television.
Phil, may I speak?
Selena, go ahead.
So when you are talking about having individual interviews and having people tell the story, how are you choosing who you're going to be interviewing? And I mean, obviously you're going to get a consent to speak with them, because we always have to have that. But how are you making those decisions on who you're going to be featuring?
I'm working with my executive team and identifying people that we served who feel like they want to tell their story. I've also reached out to the board and other occasions as well. Certain members that may be here can speak to that as well, in terms of, some stories that we've been looking to leverage and tell. Anyone else?
Thanks,
Selena. I have a question. Obviously, I haven't had a chance to look at any of this yet because we just got it, but I wanted to get this on here just so we all could take a look at it, in between the next 2 weeks. But I know you said TV, and I think Dave mentioned digital as well. Is it going to be, what platforms is it going to show up on? What's the plan here?
Yeah, so a few months ago, I submitted the strategic plan, which pretty much outlines this in full, and I would have had this attached to, just to reference that while I was talking. That's my bad. But ultimately, the strategic plan outlines the full plan, which is basically for us to do video production, so that to support our media efforts, which will go on television. These videos will also be shared via social media and will also live on our website. We are also ramping up and doing billboards throughout the community, and we're just being very strategic about our placement, and making sure that during the times that we're putting these things out, that people will actually be on the road, because again, we don't know what's going to happen if things get shut down again. And so understanding that and putting it out later towards the winter months, that's something that you'll be able to review and anticipate next month when I submit that as well. In addition to that, outside of the billboards, there's also the component with radio as well, because people are definitely listening to the radio while they're at home. And so they're going to also do some GEO targeting within the community as well. And that is, via digital ads on our phones, if they're scrolling online. That's also incorporating, social media ads that they're putting on behalf of us, not to mention the ones that we'll do as well on our own behalf through our current social media pages. And so encompassed with all of that, that will pretty much that is our media plan on one front. But then there's also a lot of other things that we're doing as well in terms of outreach that I can speak to if you'd like to, that really supports that. And that's, communicating with our audience with their newsletters. We're going to start doing communications externally to our community as well. And working with our developing a student ambassador program and working with students as well to make sure that we're hitting that demographic too.
Thank you. And I'm sure if there's more questions between now and 2 weeks from now, we'll reach out to you directly. Does anybody have any other questions or comments right now for Cynthia?
I do. I have a comment. I'd like to know what my colleagues think, if they're as concerned as me. This is a large, Cynthia, you've done a lot of work on this. This is great. It's a large push for the face of our agency, and I'd feel comfortable if I saw it. Before we paid for it. I don't know. What does anyone else think? I just think that it's so big and it's so comprehensive that, I would like to see it maybe.
Can you speak to what you mean when you say you would like to see it? What is it?
Well, I'm thinking of all the horror stories in my career when we sent out, not that you would do it, but when brochures and stuff weren't representative or accurate. And someone asked, how are you going to pick the people? And that was a good question. So I'm saying I would like to see the videos and stuff.
Yeah, there actually are video references in in each packet. And so there are video references for work that they have done in the past that you can.
I mean, a finished product of ours with that is our. Go ahead. What did you say?
We just have to pay before we can get a finished.
Mm-hmm. Right. It doesn't work in a sense of them working for us, and then if we like it, we pay for it or we don't. But I can say that based on their work and based on things that I've seen by them, I definitely feel confident that they'll be able to get the job done.
Phil?
Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I think what Linda's getting at, and I agree with her, is while we're putting all of this together, you need the contracts obviously to get the work done. But before the videos or brochures or other things are released to the public, will we see them?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for clarifying.
So that if there's a technical error that somebody missed, for instance, we can let you know and you can fix it.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to speak to brochures and things like that, you guys, I did share some of that stuff before too, and we have not released those things to the community, just to let you guys know. So I would love your feedback and what your thoughts are in those areas for some of the content that we've created around the new expansion of our services. But I will definitely make sure that you have your eyes on it before we share it, for sure.
And we are making sure Cindy is connected to the CAC and Helen's Advisory Board for their review and input as well ahead of time. One more footnote as well. What you received were detailed proposals about what they would provide and for what cost. Once you give us the green light for those, or for one of those, there will be an agreement, a contract that has follow-up to that, which would then go through Aaron for his review. So I don't know if you wanted to see the contract back, or if you would say I could sign it upon Aaron's review and approval. That would be your choice at the board meeting.
All right, thank you, Dave. We'll be bringing these back up again at full board. If there's any questions or comments from now until then, please email Dave or Cynthia. I know they'll be able to answer anything we've got for them. Any other questions or comments on these 4 items? All right, We'll just do a receive and file vote real quick since we have a motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, they've been received and filed. Thank you, Cynthia. Appreciate your work. All right, next is the CEO update from Dave. Go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. I'll start with some comments on the Open Meetings Act in general. So when the Supreme Court ruled against Governor Whitmer's executive orders and the state of emergency, one of the unintended consequences was the Open Meetings Act and our ability to meet like this. There's been a number of communications back and around where we are, where we were just before this meeting started might have changed since then. They are fast tracking legislation at the state level that would allow us to continue to meet this way. It is expected to be signed by the governor shortly, and it does go retroactive. We are meeting tonight in this format after consultation with corporate counsel. Since this is a committee meeting and the actions you're taking today are going to the full board in 2 weeks, he and I and you all, we were like, we can do this much tonight, knowing that the official actions will be taken at the full board in 2 weeks. So it's our hope that by the time we meet again, we will have something very clear to base this on. But if it's not, this was the actions will turn into recommendations and we can go forward from there. So that's item one. Item two was Richard and Helen and I presented the 3-year budget, 21, 22, and 23, to the Board of Commissioners this afternoon, a little after 3 o'clock. Thank you, Phil, for the kind words and everything. They really didn't have any questions, and I've shared that presentation with the board members. And I did follow up, Phil, and I sent the presentation to Crystal, so she has it as well. Guess another update, we have CARF coming on site actually next week, the 22nd and 23rd. They will want to speak to some board members during the when they first arrive. Cindy Conal is heading that up for us and doing just a ton of work, so I'll thank her in advance. I'm sure we will do very well. Tomorrow afternoon is the CET graduation, which I think went out to everybody. Oops. I need to share my screen, and there it is. So this is the CET graduation. It's tomorrow at noon. There is a linked or a Zoom link here that I'd be happy to share if anybody was interested. And I do have, if anybody has questions, I did pull up the what the CET is too. So the CET is the cognitive enhancement therapy. It's evidence-based practice for adults. And we had started with 10 participants and we're graduating 7. And we are very proud of the work they've done. It is on my calendar, and if anybody would like to participate, I can easily forward that information that I was just sharing. When the personnel committee met, part of some of the feedback was more stakeholder involvement. You did approve the contract for Happy or Not. We do have one terminal up and in place, and we are getting feedback. Once that expands a bit, if you recall from the presentation, there will be the ability for, if you would like, you could have access to that information in a real time or on a summary basis. So we do have that mechanism going on, along with our broadened outreach to the community right now. We did receive 2 pallets of personal protection equipment from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. I think it's like our 4th or 5th pallet of stuff. Tracy is tracking and coordinating all of that, and I'm so very thankful to her and TJ. And Dr. Serpa, when the pandemic first hit, Dr. Serpa was all over the internet shopping and getting stuff here. But now we have a nice stockpile in supplies. We are sharing that. I guess it's a good time to mention too, the Macomb Community Action, Macomb County Action, the Ernest's group gave us 5,000 masks, Tracy. That were
Yes, but willing to give more. We just need to get them out there.
Yes, so we're distributing those to the community as well, with some of the updated information that Cynthia and Jasmine are producing. So that's going well. And we were able to purchase, thanks to TJ, he was our point, along with Tammy from the fleet management at the county. The mobile health unit was purchased. TJ will now be driving it when he gets off the river, as Tracy was saying. He'll be doing a road trip to Ohio, northern part of Ohio. It's not too far. It'll take 4 to 8 weeks to undergo the internal modifications, and then it will be back here. TJ again is working with Cynthia about the wrap for the outside, which will announce it loud and clear to the community that it's Macomb County Community Mental Health. And we are starting to plan some ideas for that. Linda and I were talking too. Yes, Linda had already thought about the libraries being community hubs. Those are great places to do some outreach and stuff. So the schools, various parts of our communities that we can or have identified as, underutilized, the transportation barriers, things like that. And My Care is literally on board with us to so we can do some really good health screenings out in the community. So we'll continue to give you updates on that. And then I'll end on the high note there. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any board members have any questions or comments for Dave?
Hey, Dave, this is Brian. Could you send me that link to that graduation?
Yes, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah, I just wanted to mention Dave and Richard and Helen had it easy today at the Board of Commissioners. They did such a good job. I was the only one that had comments for them, so they must be doing okay. All right, third and final
It
call.
hasn't always been that way. That's good news, Phil.
It was.
Phil, one thing for me.
Go ahead.
In Dave's report, he did remind me that as part of our due diligence for his contract renegotiation, we did an annual performance eval, and we had very good response from all 12 board members. And it was universally positive, and that we were very happy with his performance over the past contract year. And in particular, I think everyone was very, very happy with the improvement in communication to the board members. And I think this past week's been a perfect example of it. I think I got multiple emails in the past few days of updates. So that was very much appreciated. And I think, it's just worth mentioning again how happy the board is with Dave's performance over the past year, and just a public thank you of that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
I agree. I have a question, Chris. Did that survey only go to the personnel committee, the results of that survey?
I think it was put out as part of the agenda as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. The full board saw it. There were such good comments. I would like to make sure that the full board did see it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Chris. Anybody else? Any board members with comments? All right. Seeing and hearing none, just a reminder, 2 weeks from today on October 28th at 6 is our full board meeting. And we will move on to hearing of the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? You have 5 minutes. Give us your name and address.
Hi, Phil. This is Lori Doyle.
Hi, Lori. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, my name is Lori Doyle, and as of Monday, I am the integrated care specialist for Macomb CMH. So this will probably be my last time that I'm going to introduce you to one of our employees or one of our persons served. But I have Haley Gacabelli here. She is a youth peer in our children's program, and she is here to share her recovery story with you. And Haley, if you would like to go ahead, please do so.
Hello, real quick, sorry. Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Haley. I am a youth peer support specialist for CMH. And I just want to quickly say I also work with Turning Point. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of that. I've been working at CMH for about 10 months now, so not even a full year I've been working here, and I've been super grateful to have this job. But I guess I'll just jump right into my story. So I guess I'll start out with I guess like how it kind of began when I was 10 years old. I already have like depression and anxiety as like kind of like genetically, like from both my parents. But what kind of triggered those disorders to come about with me was when I was 10, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was like the summer of going into 5th grade for me. So it was like really hard to like watch a parent go through that. And it was a really scary time, and it made me like feel like really depressed and stuff. And then when I was 11 years old, my uncle Marty, who was like another dad to me, he ended up getting killed in a motorcycle accident, and that really scarred me. I've lost like other family members, but I wasn't as close to them as I was to him, and so that one was really hard for me. And I actually was never put into therapy because of that, because that was actually traumatizing to lose someone when they're like that young and they're, you know, like out of the blue like that. So depression for me with that definitely grew. And then when I was in 6th grade, when I was like 12 years old, that's when I started to have like body dysmorphia and not see myself the way other people saw me. And I did not like how I looked. I hated my body. I hated my face. I hated everything about me. And I would like self-harm. And that's when I started to become like suicidal and stuff like that. And eventually when I was 13, I attempted suicide for the first time. And so that was that's like the start. And like not my parents didn't find out until like a couple months later when I told my friends, and my friends told like the counselor at my school. And then obviously my parents were contacted and informed about that. So then I was finally put into therapy for the first time, and I've been in therapy since. I've gone back and forth with different therapists and stuff, but that's when that journey with therapy began for me. And then when I was 14 years old, I went through repeated sexual abuse. I won't go into like the details with that. I don't want to trigger anyone, but that was a really rough time for me. And I attempted suicide twice when I was 14. That was from like February of 2014 to like April. And so that was, at the time I didn't know it was sexual abuse. I like thought maybe it would be because like I was in when I first started my freshman year of high school, I was in a parenting class. We talked about sexual abuse, and so some of the symptoms were there. That's when I started to like think about, months before, when I was in 8th grade. But when I was 15, I started to get better, a little bit better. It had been a year since all of that, and it was a decent year for me. And I kind of think of it as like a grace period, because that was only like I don't want to say the beginning, but that was very like my mental health was starting to get better, and I had not tried to kill myself that year. I had self-harmed a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as the year before. But when I was 16, I was repeatedly raped by my ex-boyfriend at the time. And I had to see him every single day at school after that for all of my junior and then all of my senior year. And that hit me the most out of all of this. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because it's just like, I guess it's just like how I'm coping with how I've always coped. But that was really hard for me, because he was the stepbrother of the popular girl in my grade. I was a year above him, and so it was kind of hard to have people not believe me, and not from his sister's expense, but just in general, people didn't believe me. My friends believed me, but they didn't see it as that big of a deal, and that he was sorry for what he did. And it was just a bunch of like, well, what about him, and like what he needed, and like it was never about like what I needed, and that I never really like, I guess, recovered from that. So I guess like that's why I'm doing like what I am right now, so other people have someone that they can talk to about what's happened to them, and then like they'll have someone validate them and like support them, because like I didn't have that. Like I had like a support system, like my support system was like not that supportive, of that, to put it in a better like sense of the word. And it was just really hard, having people that are supposed to be there for you invalidate what you've gone through. And with that, I would self-harm. I ended up getting PTSD. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I like tried to kill myself a couple of times. I was put into a hospital. I was put into Havenwick when I was 17, and it was just, and then talking to other girls there who had also gone through sexual assault as well, made me feel less alone. But being there at school every day with him, that was terrifying. And I just remember being so scared all the time, and never feeling truly safe, and never knowing like who to really go to about what had happened. He had a girlfriend at the time. He got a new girlfriend, and having her and her friends kind of obviously not believe me, and and it just never feeling like I was like cared about, and and all that. And when I was 17, I also I ended up reporting it to the police like over a year later, and not much came of that, but I'm still glad that I did it. I'm so glad that I did it, because that was like, I didn't think I could ever do that, because I was at age of consent. I was 16 and he was at 15, which is the year before you're at the age of consent. So I would have gotten into big trouble just for being 16. So that's why it took so much of me to go and share that, but I'm really happy that I did. And although nothing came of it, I still feel I walked out of that police station that night feeling so empowered and feeling like no one could silence me. And that's when I knew that that this is what I wanted to do. This is like, I wanted to be someone. I wanted to be there for someone, and I wanted to be someone to someone. And it's just, yeah. But and like what I've learned is that it's like the trauma is never gonna just go away. It's always just gonna be there. I try to say like, oh, it's not a part of me, but it is a part of me, and in all the best ways. And like, how many times have I been silenced at school, or how many times have I've even silenced myself, or I wish I would have spoken up more here, or I wish I had stood up for myself more, or I wish I didn't have people speaking for me. But I've gotten so much better from that. And I'm so happy because now I speak with Turning Point. I've been going to Turning Point since I was 16 years old. And learning so much from my therapist from that, going to group therapy at Turning Point, meeting so many incredible people who've gone through what I've gone through, and they have, Turning Point and CMH and all the people I work with and work for, they've all given me a reason to wake up tomorrow, and I'm just I'm so happy that I have what I have. So thank you for letting me share.
Thanks, Haley. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for helping others too. Lori, thank you too. We'll miss you at these meetings. Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Again, you have 5 minutes. Give us your name and address. You can put your name in the chat box. You can just unmute yourself and say your name. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, Andrew Gamicia.
Andrew, go ahead. You have
7532 Nancy. 7532 Andrew, Shelby Township, Michigan.
Thanks, Andrew. Go ahead.
I just want to say that my son, my wife, and I received a letter last week from an anonymous source at Macomb Community Mental Health canceling my son's self-determination and canceling his supports coordination through Macomb Community Mental Health, which basically is against the Michigan Medicaid Provider Manual. And less than a month we have to try to figure out how to get him services, and basically you're making us go to an agency and bring outside people into our house when you as a board won't even meet together because of the COVID. And I feel that this is totally unnecessary and totally wrong. You're putting my son's life and safety at health and safety at risk, and not giving him respect and dignity. And I want somebody, I asked the last 2 meetings for somebody from this board to contact me so we could try to work this out, but obviously that's not going to happen. And lastly, I would like to volunteer my family's story for your public service announcements if you're willing to take us. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Any other members of the public wishing to speak?
I'd like to comment. My name's Carolyn Gamicia. My husband already gave our address. I'm not going to comment on what was said regarding our son, but Mr. Pankatai did indicate how hard it is to get providers, to get CLS staff, to get respite staff. You have now placed our son, who has an autoimmune condition there, to this date, has required $600,000 in medical bills for treatments that he's hospitalized for every month. Macomb County has never requested a medical release so that they could coordinate his care appropriately. I don't know why he would receive a letter to terminate his self-determination services in the middle of COVID after we've kept him isolated and safe and healthy for the last 6 months. As my husband has said, your personnel won't even go into the office to work due to the COVID possibilities of exposure. Yet you would like our son to be exposed to public or an employee from an agency for 14 hours or 14 hours of CLS a day and 5 hours of respite when we don't know where they've been. I want you to think about that and what that does to an individual who not only has a complex medical condition, but also a wide variety of disabilities. I would like to also comment on your MRS contract, because our son at one time did attempt to utilize those services. There are 2 silos of those services, one for individuals with mental health disorders and the other silo for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The silo for individuals with developmental disabilities, the services are not appropriate. The staff that was trained to work with our son did not understand his needs as an individual with autism and seizure disorder. He was placed at risk when he was placed into the community. The contract for transportation, the agency pulled their contract. I had arranged for safe transportation for my son to the work sites. We live in Shelby Township. He was to be transported to a Big Lots on Gratiot, I think it's 12 Mile in Roseville. The assignment that they gave my son with autism, who has a very hard time with sensory dysfunction, was working and stocking shelves during Christmas season. So you can imagine if you even did that, it would be a little bit difficult. He ended up almost being arrested because he damaged a door there when the supported employment person went missing. And so he didn't have the code for the lunchroom door and he broke it. And somebody almost called the police on him, which could have resulted in a disaster. I'm not blaming anyone and I don't want to complain. I have heard success stories from NMRS, but when you sign a contract with them, you should train their professionals that you're paying quite a bit of money to work with the population that has an intellectual and developmental disability on their disability and what could be their limitations and barriers, because compatible employment is important to individuals like our son. I would disagree with Mr. Plewa that families do not want their children to seek compatible employment because many of us do that. Many of us work very hard for our children to maintain and gain adult daily living skills for such endeavors. But when your personnel is not properly trained, you don't have transportation companies to provide them transportation, or you match them with a place where they would work, which would cause is not respectful to their disability, then that is problematic. So when you do perhaps discuss this contract in the next 2 weeks, I would ask that you ensure that the staff that's working with the population that the disability that they're supporting, they're actually trained in that disability to do that and identify the needs of the individual. Additionally, you have a contract for Mr. Pankatai, which you also are approving a car to be provided to him, which I would assume that would include gas. I would have you consider something within his employment agreement. If you're going to do something like that, it should be part of his compensation package and be considered. It would be for any other professional organization to have something like that be part of a professional contract. As far as the performance of your employees, we do still feel as a family that we are being retaliated for coming on to meetings like this and expressing our concerns. regarding things that are transpiring. When we ask questions, we do not get the answer to those questions. And when somebody makes a statement before this board and says there are no cuts being made to services, over the last year, our son has sustained 6 different cuts to his services. 6. I also know families that are too afraid to come before you because they fear retaliation like we have been subjected to. So when you discuss integrative care, mental health of your community, supporting the mental health of your community, your employees are actually causing stress, anxiety, and harassing individuals to the point of where there's no communication transpiring to ensure services. What has happened to our son
Carolyn,
is
you have
criminal.
15 seconds.
So I know my time is up. And Haley, I hope that you have supports, that you are continuing your mental health. Your story is phenomenal, but I really hope that you have supports for yourself. Because what's transpired to our son, who is a person with a disability, you have to be careful within this agency. Thank you for presenting your story. I do hope you have proper supports.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Any other comments from the public? Anyone else from the public going once? Hearing of the public going twice. Third and final call for hearing of the public. All right, seeing and hearing none, we'll close the hearing of the public. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Motion from Dana, support from Lori, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.